I'm Hannah Tell, and I play Max Caulfield in Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Hannah, I'm so thrilled that you are back as Max Caulfield in Life is Strange Double Exposure. This is what we've been waiting for. How does it feel for you to return to Max? Probably a lot of emotions, underplay.
Yeah, so many emotions. It's an incredible feeling, and in a certain way, it feels like I'm coming home. I love Max so much, and we have so much in common. And my experience playing her the first time around was so formative in my life. It's a real honor to get to come back and expand on her story.
How did things feel this time around versus portraying the character in 2015?
Well, she's grown up so much. She was in high school in the first game, and now she's, out of her college years. She has a somewhat prestigious position as an artist in residence at this amazing university. And she has this whole amazing future ahead of her in terms of her artist career as a photographer. And I think that that's really given her a sense of purpose that's motivated her to kind of shed some of the shyness, parts of her introversion that held her back. I think that she's kind of grown out of that. She's more comfortable with who she is, and she feels like, hey, this is who I'm supposed to be.
Be safe, yeah?
When am I not?
She's been suppressing her powers while on the road. And now she's this artist in residence at Caledon in Vermont. Does she still feel like she needs to suppress them, or why did she feel like she needed to suppress them?
Well, the powers resulted in ultimate devastation in her life and everyone's life around her, and even like the space-time continuum with the weather-related phenomenons that were taking place because of her using this power. So she feels like this is like a deadly weapon. It's not something that she's gonna ever wanna use again. And also it really sets her apart from having a normal life and having normal relationships with people. So I think she's put that away very confidently and is very hesitant about ever tapping back into that side of herself again. She doesn't know what could happen. It could even kill her to try to use her powers again.
Whoa.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah. We've caught up with who Max Caulfield is now. What has she been doing in the time between the events of Arcadia Bay to now?
Well, she's been on the road. She doesn't feel comfortable in any one place. And she's living like a nomadic lifestyle, taking photographs of abandoned, lonely spaces. For some reason, anything that's desolate or stark and intense really draws her eye. And she likes to photograph that. And she's made a bit of a name for herself by photographing these types of images. And she searches for them and stays in hotels and hangs out in local watering holes and just kind of absorbs the slice of life of each little town that she's been in. And now she's in a new environment with all new people and a new job responsibility.
And new powers too, right?
New powers.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because fans of the original game, we love the rewind power. We were turning back time, but now time is moving in a different direction.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, as Max has evolved, her powers have evolved. She didn't use that power for a really long time, understandably, because it creates so much devastation. So it atrophied and it adapted into something different.
What if I told you there's this other timeline where Safi is alive and I can travel between this timeline and that one?
So she has this supernatural ability to move between the timelines, see the timeline where Safi is still alive, go into the one where she's dead, talk to people.
Yes, exactly. She has a unique position to figure out what's really going on in this terrible situation of Safi's death.
So I know you're a true crime fan. So when you got the call of, hey, we want you to come back and play Max and solve this mystery, where were you? What was going through your head when you finally learned the news?
Well, I was still in school. I was studying neuroscience. I was trying to prepare to take calculus, but I had to have 2 different tutors. It was a horrible situation.
2 timelines, 2 tutors.
2 timelines, 2 tutors, 1 mystery, 1 failing grade. But I got the call, and it was just like such an amazing rescue from my math phobia. And it was the producer and the performance director telling me, and I just sobbed into the phone.
Well,
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
As you can probably tell, the fan base, myself included, have a very personal relationship with Max. How does it feel for you personally knowing the impact that you've made on fans and the community?
It's just unbelievable to be playing a part that resonated with someone, so many people. It makes me feel so validated and so honored and so grateful. There are so many fans of this game that have created this really loving community where they share their art and they pour their time and energy into creating gorgeous artwork or really intricate creative cosplays.
Got tattoos?
Tattoos. It's etched on their skin permanently because the game changed them and the game changed me too. So I feel very connected to them and it moves me to tears all the time. Let's thrash, Chakra.
Okay. Let's pretend you said something normal, but basically that.
And it's not often that an actor gets to reprise a character. Was that something that you, from a physical perspective, from a performance perspective, had to take into account? Because, you know, back in 2015, you were portraying a teenage Max versus Life is Strange Double Exposure was an adult Max. Did you have to change your voice or pitch?
Yes, well, my voice kind of stayed the same, but Max's voice matured and got a bit more deeper and more grounded in its tone, and her posture became a bit more sure of herself and tall and standing to her full height and taking up space and being comfortable with that. And so I had to, adjust everything about my body to try to convey her growth.
It's been 3 years since the release of Life is Strange True Colors. Since then, the team at Deck 9 Games have been hard at work on a game, a story and a world worthy of the return of Max Caulfield, beloved star of the very first Life is Strange.
I've been here before.
We knew that this had to be something special. We knew we had to respect the 2 unforgettable endings to the first chapter of Max's story, while also crafting something new, something fresh, that echoed and acknowledged Max's past challenges, even as it moved her personal story forward. Welcoming in new players from the very beginning, while giving fans the story they didn't know they wanted. The team have been collaborating, along with our partners at Square Enix External Studios, to bring Max and Caledon University to vivid life. And we couldn't have done it without Hannah, Tell, and the rest of our stunning cast, whose performances elevate and bring nuance to every moment of our story. Together, we've built for you a supernatural murder mystery.
What is this?
Packed full of twists, intrigue, and heart that still delivers on every aspect of Life is Strange's DNA. Meaningful emotional choices driven by your connection to other characters. A diverse and complex cast that reflects the world around us in all its joy, sorrow, and anxiety. Romance, humor, and light even in the darkest of circumstances. For those of you who have played every Life is Strange to date, we can't wait to welcome you back. And for those of you curious about Max and her new adventure, we're delighted to have you join us. Welcome to our deep dive reveal of Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Murder mysteries, a narrative genre full of thrilling stories and intense action, scattered with red herrings and the inevitable climactic twist. But what happens when elements of the supernatural become involved, making the mystery at hand seemingly impossible to solve? And how do you write something so complex? I'm chatting with game director Jonathan Stouter and narrative director Felice Kwan to learn how they crafted Life is Strange Double Exposure's supernatural murder mystery. Jonathan and Felice, it is so wonderful to be here with you. How does it feel now that you can finally talk about Life is Strange Double Exposure?
It has definitely been exciting to finally get to talk about what Tech Nine's been working on these past few years, and we get to talk more about the game today.
We are excited for fan theories about what's going on in the trailer.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of theories. Trust me, because a mystery is afoot, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the core premise of the game?
Right. But not just a murder mystery, it's a supernatural murder mystery. What initially starts as a whodunit in terms of the crime very quickly becomes a how could this have even happened? How is this even possible sort of crime? And then you, as the player, as Max, are uniquely suited to use your time powers to solve this crime.
Oh, can you tell me about Max, who she is and why she has time powers?
Right, so Max Caulfield, famous photographer, artist in residence at Caledon University, which is the setting of our game.
She's come to Caledon University to start afresh, to build a life that's separate from a past that she doesn't really want to think about anymore. But unfortunately for her, this mystery lands in her lap.
So Felice, can you set the scene for us? Because we've got mysterious pasts at play, but then also this is a very unusual murder mystery, right?
Right. So it is almost holiday break, dead of winter. Max walks up a hill and finds her friend Safi dead in the snow, seconds after seeing Safi talking on the phone. There are no footprints, there's no weapon. Police are completely stumped as to how it could have happened.
So there's not really any evidence or leads to go by. How do you solve a murder mystery like this? What tools might you have?
Luckily, Max unlocks a supernatural ability. She is able to shift from the current timeline into a parallel timeline where her friend Safi is alive. And fans of the first game will recognize this as kind of an evolution of her rewind power. And why exactly that has happened is at the heart of the story.
What the hell was that?
So my understanding is there are two timelines at play here, one in which Safi is still alive, and the other, she's been murdered. If I'm Max, why don't I just stay in the timeline where she's still alive?
Because Max will very quickly discover the killer is still at large in the timeline where Safi is alive. And so, using her new supernatural abilities, Max will have to both solve and prevent the same crime across two timelines.
So we're dealing with two timelines and a race against time to stop a killer before they kill again. This seems like it was very complicated to write.
It was really complicated. It was also very interesting because Max meets essentially two versions of every person that she's investigating, two versions of the environment, and these will both differ in ways that are significant because of Safi's death. It is also kind of bittersweet because even the people that Max is growing closer to, like Moses, there's two versions of him as well, and she needs to navigate that.
Can you tell us a bit more about Moses?
Yeah. So Moses is Safi's best friend, and he's an astrophysicist at this college. And because of his science background, he might be the only person who can help Max understand what's going on with her powers. And the two of them grow closer through this investigation. But Max has to wrestle with if she's ready to open up and tell someone about her powers for the first time in years.
Now, Jonathan, I can imagine that the multiple timelines also really lends itself to some interesting gameplay. What can we expect?
Well, so Max's ability to shift between the two timelines open up a whole slew of new gameplay possibilities for us. And so Max will be navigating between different versions of the same space impacted by Safi's death, and she'll be able to use these powers to circumnavigate puzzles, discover clues about suspects she might not otherwise have access to, in addition to navigating these different relationships in each space.
Oh, so like maybe in one timeline, a door is closed, in another, it's been unlocked, but it sort of depends on how you play the game, right?
Right.
Or Max can make sure that it is unlocked.
Oh, now we're learning. I'm going to write this down in advance. And you mentioned earlier that this is described as a quote-unquote impossible murder that only Max can solve. Why is that?
Because Max can talk to the murder victim. She's the only person who can do that, and it's her relationship with Safi that's the key to solving it.
Safi's alive.
Max, are you okay? It kind of seems like you're on drugs.
Huh? Oh. No, I'm just really happy you're here with me. And your mom.
So, drugs then.
So let's talk about Max's incredible new ability to bend time. Give us the lowdown on that.
Right. So Max has the ability to tear the fabric between these two timelines and instantaneously travel between them. We call it shifting.
That's a lot of responsibility, and that's a lot of power. Where does it come from? Because we know Max to have had powers in the past, right?
Yeah, she actually does not have
her rewind powers anymore. She has not used it because of the trauma associated with it and fear of what might happen. And so when Safi is murdered, she can't rewind. It's like losing fluency in a language. But she does care enough about Safi that she's willing to use the new version of her power, the shifting, to try to help her friend. But why that has happened is Max doesn't know. It's kind of at the heart of the story.
So is Max kind of thrown by having this new power, or is she sort of old hat at this? She's like, yeah, I've just got another power, pile it on.
She definitely at first, she needs to use the power to investigate how the power works before she can even start to investigate the murder. So right off the bat, she is concerned, is this some version of rewind? Have I gone back in time? She doesn't know. And so she starts traversing the timelines, pulsing and listening in on folks across the veil and deducing how her power works.
Okay, so this pulse power, is that the thing that she does where it's kind of like an aura coming out of her fingertips and she can,
goes up.
What's that?
Right, so Max can extend her supernatural senses to detect where the veil is weakest between the two timelines, the spots where she can shift. And in doing that, she can also grab a glimpse of other people, key objects across the timeline without having to shift, which comes in really handy when you're a detective and you want to eavesdrop and snoop and track suspects.
So when she uses the pulse, she kind of like takes this glimpse into the two timelines, can make an assessment and then choose which one to shift into. How does the shift work?
Right, so when Max has identified one of these weak points between the timelines, we call them shift spots, she can use the shifting ability to instantaneously travel to the other timeline. So in a flash, she is instantaneously transported to the opposite version of the environment, different non-playable characters around. And so she's able to use that to traverse puzzles, circumnavigate locked doors, suspects that won't talk to her in one timeline but will in another.
Oh, so like, is it apparent to the player, yeah, I'm in this timeline where Safi's still alive, or I'm in this one where Safi's dead? Like, how will I know? I will like confuse myself playing this.
So
does Max get confused?
She does. Okay. She absolutely does get confused. And along the way, she has to learn what's different between the two timelines along with the player. But Safi's death not just reverberates through the relationships on campus, but also through the environment. And we reflect this in different ways, different set dressing, different audio, different lighting. The weather patterns change. It's the butterfly effect. And so Safi's death has this immense impact that creates two distinctly different timelines.
I do think that it will be really clear to both Max and the player where she's at. At the same time, she's juggling twice as many social interactions and twice as many clues. So she absolutely messes up. It's a lot of fun for Max to try to keep all of that straight.
Right. So she'll have to keep an eye out for dialogue choices, because if you're not paying attention, you might stumble into Max being confused about the timeline. Whereas if you're on your game, you can avoid those little faux pas in a conversation.
I'm sorry. I was being nosy. I don't know why. Probably just paranoid.
You think? Jesus, Max. Get your shit together.
And also, we're on a college campus, so she's supposed to be using this power to be solving a murder mystery, but I imagine there's probably also a lot of drama that filters through.
And she's an artist in residence, so she's supposed to be this mentor figure to the students who are still there on holiday break. But at the same time, it would be really useful to manipulate these students to solve this mystery. So she is juggling a lot.
So Max Caulfield, who has been so closed off for so long, now has to be like, okay, I have to juggle all these new social situations and put myself out there. It sounds like this is going to be a big learning experience for Max.
Now I have more impossible questions than I had to begin with.
I have to ask, because I'm just so curious, which came first, the idea for Max to have this timeline shifting power, or did your team just want to experiment with the idea of multiple timelines?
We have been interested in multiple timelines for a while because of that gameplay possibilities. But I think it wasn't until we were exploring Max's story that it really clicked how we could do it in a way that felt absolutely intertwined with the emotional journey as well.
And shifting and traversing the timelines is in the player's hands. You have to trust the player is going to do it.
Yeah, the player over the course of the game is going to learn how to use this ability to navigate the environments, the relationships, and then at a certain point, we just trust the player to navigate and solve this mystery.
When I woke up, Safi was gone forever. And now, I am in a whole new world of questions. What are these worlds? Timelines? Realities? Where did this new power come from? Is Rewind gone forever? Lucky for me, one question clearly takes priority. How do I protect the Safi I have left?
Now, as a big fan, I am so happy that Hannah Tell is returning as Max. But for people who are new, players who are new to the Life is Strange franchise, do they have to go back and play all of the older titles? What's the point of entry for them?
You don't have to at all. All of the Life is Strange games stand on their own and have their own story. And so for Life is Strange Double Exposure, players will have everything they need to understand the emotional context of Max's past, but it is a brand new location in a small college. There's new characters. You can absolutely start with this first game.
Seems like Safi rubbed a few people the wrong way.
How should I know? Go talk to somebody who's been here longer than 6 months.
We do all know that Life is Strange is all about choices and the consequences of those choices, for better or worse. So for returning players like me, who made really hard decisions that we now have to live with, do we bring those with us to Life is Strange Double Exposure?
Yes, so the returning players from Max's first adventure will remember that there's a massive decision to make at the end of that game, results in 2 very different endings. And it was really important at Deck 9, if we were going to make another Max adventure, that the game would have to respect both those endings. Life is Strange Double Exposure does that very thing. There's no canon ending in our book to the first game. Double Exposure will respect both endings in Max's thoughts, her journal, her SMS, her interactions with other characters, what she opts to reveal about her past to her new friends. It's all reflective of that final choice.
For all of us players who were racked with guilt making those tough decisions, who kind of crave making decisions like that again, will we have lots of those choices that keep us up at night playing Life is Strange Double Exposure?
Yeah, Max will face a lot of tough decisions. It's kind of her thing.
Perfect. That's what I want. Bring it on. And so it's been so long since the original game came out. For players who maybe don't have the original console that they played on, or let alone the save file from their Life is Strange 1 game, how will they import their previous choices?
So Safi and Max will have a conversation that's pretty early on in the game, and Arcadia Bay just comes up naturally in that conversation. So players can remake the choice then, or they could try the other way.
Okay, so it sounds like Safi is kind of like a little interrogation there with Max.
Safi's very curious about Max because Max is generally pretty closed off, and Safi knows there's something interesting there.
Okay, so that's where we're going to see this backstory come into play. Very, very cool. So it sounds like new players are all good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It was very important to us that for folks entirely brand new to the franchise and brand new to Max Caulfield as a character, that everything they need to know about her is right there in Life is Strange Double Exposure. And then for returning players, we absolutely honor the biggest, most impactful decision you're going to remember from that first game and carry that forward so you can see how that plays out in Max's latest adventure.
Is this about the blue-haired girl whose picture you keep in your wallet?
Wait, you snooped in my wallet?
Stop deflecting. The girl with the blue hair. What's the deal with you two?
And I just remember thinking, you know what? We're going to fail this right on. My name is Blue Allen, and I play Moses Murphy in Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Engineering wants a prank war. I'm trying not to sink to their level.
Moses is this lovable astrophysicist. He's curious about everything. He's very smart. He's so smart. He's so smart. There's a love for humanity that I feel like Moses has in general, that I try to live by. But then on the other hand, sometimes I feel like he's very different from me, which is fun to play with. There's an innocence that Moses has. I feel like he feels as if the world hasn't like tainted him yet. I think as I've gotten older and just like gone through life, sometimes I feel like, a little jaded at things, and I don't feel like he has that. There's something very just like sweet and human about him. And I think that's why having a friend like Safi is super important, because she's like a badass, right? And so she's that friend that'll pull him out of his comfort zone, and that's why I feel like we're a little different.
Comes with being the only scientist in a family of artsy-fartsy types.
For me, singing has always been one of the easiest ways for me to express anything. I feel like I can talk, but I'm very introverted. But I do feel like I'm able to express myself through music and through singing. I grew up in church singing. My grandmother was over the choir. It's just always been a thing for me. Music has always been my biggest passion. When I was deciding on like colleges and my career after high school, I was planning on going to culinary school. And then I had auditioned for another school, Southern Illinois University, and I got accepted and they let me into the program. So that's how I decided on that school. It was really just, they wanted me and I was like, okay, well, I'll go where I'm wanted. I don't think anything really hit me until the day I got dropped off. I had this like newfound freedom that I had never had, and I didn't really know what to do with it, but I knew like I couldn't go back home.
You'd be surprised how quickly you get used to it.
Well, if we want to set the scene about my theory final, in relation to learning music theory, I learned music very differently. I knew I was in trouble when the semester started. Like, I suck at theory. I can't read sheet music. I am bad. I'm pulling all-nighters every day. Like, I was up to like 2, 3 a.m. just trying to study and like absorb as much information as I could. And so leading up to the final, I was just like, listen, I just have to get a C to pass it. Finally, it was like, I can't absorb anything else and I have to go to sleep. And so I went to bed at like 3 or 4 a.m. And I did that thing that I realized that we do as adults where we're like, oh, I'll still be able to wake up. Like, I'm fine. I can get 2 hours of sleep and I will wake up right on time. And I did not. I woke up at 8:40. And my class started at 8 and ended at 9:30, I believe. And I got to class, it was like 8:45. And I walked in. Of course, classes started. Everyone's heads are down. They're taking their final. And I just walk in. And I just remember thinking, you know what? We're going to fail this final. As long as we accept that, let's just put some shit on the paper. And I sat down, and the thing was you had to answer all the questions, but I only had 30 minutes left. And each question was gonna take me at least like 10 minutes. And I was just like writing shit down, and I was like, wow, this has gotta be wrong. I was just doing the final, and time was up. And I turned to my final, and I remember I just walked out the door and went back to my dorm. I didn't speak to my friends. I just went to my dorm and I took a nap. And I saw them at the class later and failed that class.
I think I have an idea, but once we go down this road, we can't turn back.
My second semester of college was 1,000 times better. And after that semester, I left school on a high. With already knowing the decision that I wasn't coming back, because I had applied to another college and I was gonna study music therapy, actually. My mom sat me down one day and was like, what are you doing? And I was like, girl, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know. I'm going to school though. I am going to college. I'm doing it. And I remember she was like, do you think like, have to, like it's a requirement? And I was like, well, yeah. And she said, no, I've never required that from you. And so her sitting me down and having that conversation felt like the biggest weight had been lifted. And I didn't go back to school. And then I started auditioning for musicals and plays and literally never stopped. I hopped on a moving train and I've been working ever since.
The scientist and the poet. Duality.
I would say my life experience prepared me for Moses because it allowed me to walk into spaces as my full self. It feels really personal because I, had to go through this like weird year of all this self-doubt because of new things, right? Like new things are scary. And I think I went the route of doubting myself and being scared and being like, no, I can't do it. And I think it prepared me for Moses because doing this video game and animation was scary at first because I'd never done it. And I was in this new space, but I didn't feel inadequate. I felt like I'm Blue and this is what I have to give. And it helped me connecting with this character so much because I was like, you know what? There's a reason they wanted me here. And finding ways that me and him are similar, it just felt like everything settled in perfectly. Like I felt like this was my job, you know? And I felt like in a way that this character was created for me to play.
A better question would be, what isn't special about it?
My name is Blue Allen, and be sure to catch me in Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Continue to be the change. Be the change that I wanted to see in the world. My name is Alasia Gray, and I play Diamond Washington in Life is Strange Double Exposure.
The only thing I'm taking from him is his crown.
Diamond is incredible. She's a go-getter, very driven, talented, and doesn't take any crap from anybody. So those are things that stand out to me about Diamond. She's an artist, she's a filmmaker, and I went to film school, theater and film, so I immediately resonated with that. I also very much resonate with her activism, because I'm very much an activist, so I love her. I feel like she's me, a version of me.
It used to be about activism and creating art that matters.
When I was growing up, I was always very passionate about performing, loved different roles and characters. Also was always very into advocating for others. College, I knew I wanted to study theater. And then because I had this affinity for politics and things, I minored in poli-sci, so political science as well. I went to CU Denver, yeah, and I was there 4 years. I knew going into college that I wanted to do a study abroad program. And of course, there was no other place but Paris that I wanted to go, and studied French there, but also art and architecture, which was literally a different field trip every day. Like, get on the metro, this is where class is today, figure it out. So I loved that, just being able to be independent in a whole other country and just figure it out.
You gotta seize the opportunities when you can.
Getting there, it was actually a whirlwind. And I remember it was in a time where there were still calling cards. And I just remember needing to call my mom, and it took like days to even contact her. Just even the day-to-day of like the showers and just like how that was in dorm life. Because even in my undergrad, I had my own apartment. So like I was not even used to like a dorm, and then you gotta walk to the shower. And so that was a thing to get used to. It was just an adventure every day. But I will say one of the most saddening days I had there was one of my final days, which I actually had a final presentation due for my art and architecture class. And I forgot which museum we needed to get to that day. And for some reason, I just like could not find it. My class just wasn't there, the teacher wasn't there, and I was just crying. So I think I just learned like a lot about myself, a lot about patience, a lot about just resilience and grit.
And hey, it almost worked.
Diamond is very determined and very driven. Nothing can stand in her way. And so I think, yeah, definitely studying abroad and having that experience, you have to have, even if you're nervous or scared, there's a level of confidence you have to have. And yeah, definitely some of that Parisian experience.
I mean, I wasn't trying to stop you.
So I graduated my undergrad in 2011. But there was something where I was like, okay, but I feel like I still want to like experience going back to school. I want to do it before I feel like it's too late. And I saw the program that I actually ended up getting into, which was in social and environmental arts practice, meaning those who use their art for social justice, for social change, and activism. So yeah, when I got accepted into that program, I was just like, yeah, this is what I need to be doing. And then all of us in different capacities, especially me, were at protests. I was still creating art about protests, activating students to use their voice and talking about Black Lives Matter, but also just the pandemic and doing literally a docu-theater project, and then dealing with my own like trauma from like racism and stuff that was continuing to happen. That's the stuff I'm navigating in my career all the time, hence the activism and why I do what I do in so many different avenues.
Always a safe assumption.
So this is my actual cap that I wore for grad school. It says 2021. Continue to be the change. Be the change that I wanted to see in the world. It doesn't stop here. So one thing that I love that came out of my grad program actually was, I have an internationally published essay called Why Are There No Great Kids of Color in the Performing Arts? It's an examination of like inequity in the arts for kids of color. And I speak at conferences nationwide because of it, and South by Southwest, for instance, education conference, I spoke there. And it was a project that I did in grad school and was really encouraged by my cohort, by my faculty to like go further with it. I don't feel like I'm gonna get emotional, but like, sorry, I did not expect to get emotional. So yeah, graduating meant your work isn't done, it's just beginning, and keep being the change.
I am playing the long game.
My name is Alasia Gray. Thank you for listening to my story, and make sure to check out Life is Strange Double Exposure.